people think that Africans live in tree houses. I was just so amazed.
That's when you realized you were lied to?
Yes, and that's when I realized other people probably also foolishly had that interpretation. Fortunately, no one called me an African booty scratcher. Just saying the word African was enough stigma. When I'm around my American friends, they look at me as an African. But then also when I'm around my African friends, they look at me as an American.
Interesting.
So I need to figure out, where do I exactly fit?
You know Ghana is a fun place to be.
Yes.
Why are you married?
You're making me shy. It's difficult to overcome being seen as a cash cow because you've lived abroad. Like even me as myself. In the US, if you buy something that's slightly used, it is truly slightly used. If you buy something in Ghana and it is used, it has been used, beaten, brutalized, and then now put back on the market for usage.
Yeah. Any regrets? Things you wish you could have done differently?
Yes. Agriculture is huge. In Ghana, there's this negative stigma against farmers. There's so much potential. A lot of these superfoods, if you're able to grow them and export them, the possibilities are limitless. You have to prove yourself. You have to work hard.
Is it because you're black?
Because I'm black, because I'm a woman. Hire right or fire fast.
Fire fast. Is it not mean to do that?
No. When you're around somebody for a long period of time, you start to see them as family. You get rid of them before they become family.
What's the minimum amount of money somebody should have before coming to Ghana? Because I've seen so many people come and go than come and stay. How much money did you come to Ghana with? That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Then how long did it take you to save that?
People have this notion that people in Ghana, they don't know always what's best for Ghana, so they have to come and save them. But in actuality, it is people have great business ideas. They just need the financial support, and they have to be taught what business continuity looks like. Definitely build your network online and offline. Going out to lunch with somebody, it might feel like, oh, it's a waste of time, because it helps people understand and assess who
That's
you are.
That's where you build real relationship.
Exactly. It would be teamwork makes the dream work. People equals profitability.
Hello guys, and welcome back again to another amazing episode. And this is the Diaspora Transition episode where we have dialogue with diasporan who decided to transition from the diaspora and currently living here on the continent. And today we do have here someone very special. And she goes by the name Akosua. So without further ado, Akosua, welcome on the show.
Hi, thank you.
Now, Akosua, you're born on what day?
I was born on Sunday.
Sunday.
In the morning at 6 a.m.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. That's a typical Ghanaian name.
Yes.
I introduced you briefly. People are watching you for the first time. They might not know who you are. Can you briefly introduce yourself? You know, what you do, everything to the people watching you for the first time.
Yes. So my name is Akosua Opong-Mensah.
Yeah.
I am a HR professional. I also do business development, and I moved from the US to come here to Ghana to provide full service business development ranging from operational efficiency, helping people find funding opportunities, and most importantly, research and development within the HR space here in Ghana.
Interesting. Why HR space? What brought you to be able to choose that HR space? Yeah,
so it's the usual, right? I'm sure many of us are familiar with coming to Ghana, or we know someone in Ghana, and oftentimes you come to Ghana, you sit at a restaurant, you say, oh, I would like the jollof. They say, okay, sure, we'll cook it for you. 10 minutes later, oh, madam, we don't have the jollof, but we have fried rice. Okay, I'll take the fried rice. Another 10 minutes pass. Oh, I'm sorry, the fried rice is just finished. Sorry, what else would you like? You point to the fufu. Oh, sorry, we don't have fufu. You point to the emoto. Oh, we don't have rice ball. And then you're like, okay, what do you have on this menu?
Right.
And you go through this whole back and forth. You finally get the meal. No one checks on you. And then before you know, you're leaving the establishment with a bad experience, and they're also leaving with a bad interaction with you. So my whole goal was to change that dynamic and see different ways we can help companies scale and keep that customer service going at a higher level.
Interesting. Now, I mean, your heritage is Ghanaian, right? How did you end up in America?
So, like many Ghanaians in Ghana, we all have these dreams of greener and better pastures.
Right.
So my father is a chemistry professor, and he went all the way through his education in Ghana. He got his master's degree, and he decided, okay, I want to go to the U.S. to continue my education. And he kept continuing on, and unfortunately for him, by the time he finished, there was a lot of political instability at that time. So he decided, okay, let me stay in the U.S. And through that time, he met my mom, and the rest is history.
Interesting. Wow. So you were born in the U.S.?
Yes.
Wow. So you're American citizen?
Yes.
Now, I have so many ideas now. You know the joke about how most women say Ghanaian men often want to date diaspora women because of the visa too. That's why I cried that joke. But anyways, talk to me a little bit about you growing up, in the States as a Ghanaian, right? American living in a Ghanaian parents and household. Your upbringing, your education, why you chose, the HR space growing up, your interest and stuff like that. Yeah.
So I grew up in California, born and raised in California. Growing up, I would definitely say that my father was very, very much in tune with his Ghanaian heritage. And one of the side hustles that he had was setting up an African cultural center. So within that African Cultural Center, he had many Ghanaian artifacts. He often talked about different things in music and genre that came out of Nigeria, as well as things that were going on in Ethiopia as well. Wow. And because of that influence, I was very deeply rooted in my Ghanaian and African heritage as a whole. And then also because he was able to see things like Kwanzaa and the African American context within the diaspora, he was also able to expose me to those things like that. So I was able to have this well-rounded view of what it means to be African in the diaspora.
Wow.
And because of that strong foothold, at some point I started feeling like when I'm around my American friends, they look at me as an African. But then also when I'm around my African friends, they look at me as an American.
Interesting.
So I need to figure out, where do I exactly fit? So I decided, you know what? I've been searching deep inside, and I have to identify what is my identity. And I fully identified as a Ghanaian American. So how do I merge that? What does that look like? I decided to forge that journey by creating my path to come back and return to Ghana.
Interesting. Wow, how long have you returned now?
It's been about a year and a half.
Where we are currently filming is called Jendu Place. Jendu Place is a co-working space located in East Legon, very close to American House. If you're working remotely, you want to be able to plug and play, this is a place for you. They have a high-speed internet. They also have backup electricity, which is solar, so you don't have to worry about doom so. One thing about Africa, we struggle with stable electricity sometimes, but they have solar as a backup, so the light never goes out. Even when the main electric goes out, it's still on, so you can enjoy the amenities they have here. So yeah, come check it out. Come tell them you're coming from Webnation Africa, you might get a discount. How is Ghana treating you?
Ghana is Ghanaing. Accra is Accraing.
What were some of the experiences your first time you touched down here?
So the very first time I touched down, I believe I was 10 years old.
Okay.
And I remember my auntie, she's so funny. She told me that she had come to visit us in the U.S. and she said she was going back, and when we returned, she said, oh, we all have these different tree houses that we live in. Tree house. So I guess she had heard some stories while she came to visit us in the U.S. that people think that Africans live in tree houses. So in her mind, she thought she was going to play with me.
Yeah.
So she had this story of telling us that, hey, we all live in tree houses. So when you come, you have to make sure you only have one bag with just enough clothes because you can't lift it into your tree house. So I remember when the flight landed, she goes, oh, we're staying at a hotel for tonight. The hotel was her house.
Oh, wow.
So while we're in the house, I'm looking around. I see all these pictures. I'm like, oh, wow. You even put up the family pictures. This is so nice.
But it's a house.
Yeah, it was her house. And she kept the story going because her house was very big. And at the time, I was looking at it like, wow, this is a 6-bedroom house. It's not even in a tree. It's just one story. I was just so amazed.
That's when you realized you were lied to?
Yes. And that's when I realized other people probably also foolishly had that interpretation of what it means to live in Africa.
And you were 10 years old at that time?
Yes.
What was it after that? How long did you stay?
So I stayed at that time for 2 weeks, because I had to go back to school.
Okay.
So then afterwards, my time got progressively longer and longer. I started coming without my parents. I would come with just my brother and I. And then after that, I just started coming by myself. And the time went from spending 1 month to 3 months. And then I spent 4 months. And then I did the relocation, and I've been here now for 1.5 years.
Interesting. Normally, like, people, Ghanaians themselves, right, when their parents are in the diaspora and they tell their parents that they are coming back home, they often have like a pullback from their own parents saying that, why we sacrificed for you, for you to have, to be American, right? To live in this American society, make your money here, and you telling me that all those things are in vain, you want to go back to the continent. Talk to me how your parents reacted to that when you decided that you want to embark on a journey here to Ghana to do your HR, and other businesses on the continent.
So, great question.
Yeah.
The way I positioned it to them was, I told them many years ago that my plan is to relocate. As usual, your parents never take you serious. They're like, oh yeah, you're just saying this. So I went back to school. My plan was to go back to school. I wanted to get a master's in organizational development, specifically so I could help with the organizational infrastructure with that HR lens on top of it. So I went back to school. After I went back to school, I said, okay, now I'm done with school. I'm getting ready to transition. I'm going to work one more job within the tech space, and then I'm going to make that transition. So I informed them of this transition. Still, they weren't believing me. When I finally booked the ticket to go, my mom was happy for me. She said, okay, we'll see how long this lasts. I don't think she thought it would be a longer term thing.
Really?
But my dad was like, no, I don't think this is going to work out for you. Your tree is bad. Like, I don't understand how you're going to be able to survive in Ghana. So I said, okay, that's fine. I'm not here to prove anybody right or wrong. I just have my purpose, my mission, my North Star. And I feel like that me being in Ghana, at least for this period of time, is part of my North Star. So I took the leap. I moved. I hear from them. We talk about it. And it's funny how our parents are. When other people are excited for you and they see what you're doing, they get excited too. But when it's just you telling them, oh, I'm going to do this, they're not excited.
They don't see a vision.
They don't see it at all.
Did that affect you in any way, shape, or form in the beginning?
I would say a little bit. So at first it affected me in the sense of, there were many items that I shipped, but they didn't arrive on time. So little things like, oh, the next time they're flying, I would ask them to bring me things, and they would say, no, you should just come back to America if you really want it so bad. You see, Ghana doesn't have these things. So that type of negativity, slight pettiness, it made me feel some way. But with time, I just got over it, because I realized as I start to navigate Ghana, I can find a lot of these things that I otherwise thought I could be without.
What did you ship? What are some of the things you ship down here?
Number one, a mattress.
A mattress.
Get you a good mattress before you come to Ghana.
Like the American mattress.
Latex, nice hybrid cooling mattress. I love it.
Cooling. What is cooling mattress?
So it has memory foam and it has latex, and the fabric as well as that combination keeps your body cool. So at night you sweat less, which for me is really important because I'm not a hot weather person, even though I'm here in Ghana.
Interesting. Wow. So mattress. What else?
Mattress. Another thing that I found really helpful was a juicer.
A what?
A juicer.
What is that? A juicer.
A juicer.
The one that you can squeeze juice to.
Yes.
Hey.
So
you came prepared.
So one thing I've come to realize is in the US, you can always find sales. You can always find a deal. If you buy something that's slightly used, it is truly slightly used. If you buy something in Ghana and it is used, it has been used, beaten, brutalized, and then now put back on the market for usage.
True. So you had to bring those things with you because you might not get the same thing here.
Yes.
Interesting.
Or at least the same price.
I hope you didn't ship any sofa though. Did you?
No.
Okay.
You can find those things here definitely at a much better price and for new quality.
Okay, so what about, housing situation? Did you have a house here or a family house that you stayed in, or you had to go out looking for a house yourself? And if you did, how was the experience like?
So I went to stay with family from the onset.
Okay.
As a Ghanaian, I'm sure you know what that dynamic is like when you live with family. The family's excited to have you there, and you're glad to also be there, but you also want to be mindful to determine, okay, what is my next step? What is my next plan? Because you never want to burn any bridges or wear out your welcome. So my family, luckily, they're gracious and super supportive. They let me stay. One thing my uncle called earlier, and one thing I love about him is even when he wasn't fully bought into the vision, he asked questions. So I would tell him, oh, I'm going to this meeting. Oh, I have this conference. Oh, I have this speaking engagement. Oh, I'm planning this event. And he would ask questions. He would want to understand, how is that manifesting? Is it going to bring me money? He would push me to ask the difficult questions and help me better interact with the fellow Ghanaians here.
I've heard diasporan women say it's often very easy for them to have friends, local friends with Ghanaian men, but often difficult to have with Ghanaian women. Have you experienced anything like that? Yeah.
Fortunately, I have not experienced that.
Yeah.
And I would say I was fortunate to have really good friends before I fully made the transition. A lot of friends that I made had been in the U.S. or they come to visit the U.S. prior. I let them know that my full-term vision in the future was to definitely relocate to Ghana. So with them being around and kind of helping to guide me, it was really instrumental in allowing me to have a much smoother landing. So some of my friends, when I was getting ready to ship items, they would tell me things like, things that are American made, those are the things that you can bring to Ghana. But if it's something like plates, you don't need to do that. You can find good quality plates, if not better quality plates in Ghana. If I was looking for maybe a particular shoe or something of the sort, they would say, okay, if it's a designer shoe or something very unique of that sense, sure, you can bring that. But if you're just looking for simple sandals or something just stylish, you can find all those things in Ghana and more.
Interesting. 1.5 years, what would you say has been your experience? Any regrets, things you wish you could have done differently?
Yes. I would say something I could have done differently is I wish I would have been well prepared to get property in advance. And the reason why I say that is I don't know a lot of people that own property or have bought property within the past 10 years. So because of that experience, when I came to Ghana, I thought, okay, the cost of living is so much lower than California. So maybe 50,000 USD should be enough to secure something with 2 bedrooms in Central Accra. I was sorely mistaken. I didn't realize even just the plot of land is far lower than that.
Yeah.
So just navigating through that process.
Far higher than that 50,000.
Yes, exactly. Far higher than that. So just navigating that process, I would say I wish I would have educated myself prior. There's definitely resources out there. So I recommend everyone get educated on that.
Let me ask you this. Did you have friends in the community where you were in the States? Ghanaian friends or even diaspora African American friends?
Yes.
How did they react to Africa when you make mention of Ghana and stuff like that? How did they react to it?
So I was fortunate to have a lot of friends that were also first generation American.
Okay.
So it was the same reaction that I get from their country. So one of my very best friends, she's Filipino. So she under the same dynamic when it comes to identity and wanting to go back and give back. She had a lot of those same thoughts and experiences. I have Nigerian friends also like that. I had a friend who actually, she was Nigerian. She had moved to Nigeria maybe 4 or 5 years prior. She went through the national service program, just like any other Nigerian would have gone through, and she fully immersed herself in Nigerian culture.
Interesting.
So just having friends that have done those things, it definitely motivated me to keep going, to know that it is possible.
Now, I'll ask you this. I've had a lot of, first generation like yourself tell me the experiences they had with their brothers, African Americans in the States. One told me that she was called African booty scratcher, and because of that, they were not able to merge themselves with the African American community. Did you by any chance have that kind of experience, and how did you react to it?
Yeah, so fortunately, no one called me an African booty scratcher. Just saying the word African was enough stigma. And it was mostly because I grew up in a lot of multicultural areas. So not only were they not familiar with African Americans, but just Black people in general. There weren't a lot of Black people. So I grew up around Chinese people, Filipino people, Mexican people, Salvadorian people. And of course, there were African Americans and some Caribbean people as well. But because there was no particular dominant group that I particularly gravitated towards, I didn't hear any of those type of insults. I would say the biggest thing was more so being tagged as an African and me feeling like I didn't have a lot of African friends. So when someone says, oh, you belong to this group, but you don't see those people, you don't know the customs of those people, you're not immersed in those norms, it becomes kind of like you feel ostracized. You feel like you're on the outside. So having to navigate that, I would say, was initially difficult. But like I say, everything always comes down to a decision. You have to decide what you want. You have to decide the direction you want to go.
Talking about merging with the community, what do you think diasporan coming down here should be able to do to get themselves, like, synchronized with the locals, and not to be looked at like foreigners or cash cow all the time, like they're mostly looked at?
Yeah, definitely. It's difficult to overcome being seen as a cash cow. Like even me as myself, I'm a Ghanaian. My name is Akosua. People still look at me and they're like, oh, but because you've lived abroad, anything small for the boys, something for the boys, something for the boys. Even today, when I was leaving my compound, the security guard was like, oh, where's my Easter gifts? And I don't even celebrate Easter. So I would say the best way to kind of navigate that is to kind of be firm on your values and also immerse yourself in doing cultural norm activities. So one thing that I often try to do is I try to go out to some festivals or some events or some things where it's predominantly local. And I also often try to advocate for local people to be in local spaces. Because at the end of the day, Ghana belongs to Ghanaians. You can come from other countries, you can say, oh, I want to help, but at the end of the day, it all gets seen through this white savior complex. So in order to truly make that change that you want, you have to kind of bridge that gap. And I call it like the Jesus effect, because when Jesus, if you're a Christian, so when Jesus came to earth, he didn't come to earth and say, oh, the Gentiles are wrong. Gentile meaning anybody who wasn't a Jew. He didn't say they're wrong. He said, no, they have different norms. They have different standards. How do we bridge that gap? How do I get them to understand the power of Christ, me? And how do I get them to understand who God really is? So it's through the showing of miracles and telling parables. Those are the things that help bridge that gap. So I feel like it's our duty for anyone who comes from the diaspora, having Ghanaian heritage or not, to find ways to bridge the gap, understand what a local person is dealing with, and then come at it from that perspective.
Do you think we know each other very well as Ghanaians and then diasporans? Do you think we do know each other very well?
No, not at all. There's a lot of assumptions made on both sides. Like I know an assumption that I used to make was, I used to think that, oh, if a Ghanaian is giving you a hard time, they know better or they don't know better, right? I used to think, oh, they don't know what they're doing. They just need education. Right. No, we're smart. We know better. But it's not like we know better from the sense of we're wicked or we're bad people. It's more like we know better, like we have the capabilities to solve problems, to propel us forward. So it's more like if it doesn't happen, it's because there's a blocker. And I feel like with collaboration of both sides, we're able to bridge that gap and really overcome that blocker together. And I feel like that's the key missing piece. And that's why I want everybody to return home so we can find a way to bridge that gap, collaborate, and work well together.
Have you tried reaching out to your friends to, you said you want to bring everybody back. What have you done to invite people to, embark on the similar journey like you did yourself?
Yeah, so everywhere I go, I always tell people, please come back. So whenever I go back to California or anywhere in the U.S., I always tell the fellow Ghanaians there, they think, oh, when I come to Ghana, I just go, I have fun, I ride my quad bikes, I go party, and that's the end of it. And I tell them, no, you should volunteer. You should maybe follow one of your relatives to work and understand what that day-to-day looks like, and understand if they say, oh, I need $100, what that $100 actually can go towards, and understanding what it looks like to live day-to-day in Ghana. So that's how I try to encourage people to come back, to let them know that all things are possible when you come back. Another thing is, my friends who aren't Ghanaian, I always tell them, hey, when you come back, you know me here. So you've already interacted with me. We've either through work or through our friendships. You have someone who understands you. I can help bridge some of these gaps. I'm not 100% on both sides, but I look at it like I can be a good intermediary to help support people. So just like yourself, because you're telling these stories, I'm sure you share positive, negative, just so people can understand holistically what it's like in Ghana.
What to expect.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. So, business opportunities. Have you identified any business opportunities you think people watching can capitalize on? If yes, what are they? Give me 3 that you think has the potential.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would say the first one is agriculture. Agriculture is huge. I know locally in Ghana, there's this negative stigma against farmers, that they're uneducated. Exactly. And you can't do much with that. But there's so much potential, specifically with agriculture, to increase the gross domestic product of Ghana. The more you're able to grow various different things like salt, or produce salt, grow sugar, what else? Peppers, exporting things that are unique like soursop, aluguntugui, things.
That's one of my favorite food.
Yep. So things like that. There's another one, moringa. So a lot of these superfoods, if you're able to grow them and export them, the possibilities are limitless. You get the opportunity to employ a lot of people, educate them on sound processes, and most importantly, you get to feed the nation, because they can eat from what's on the ground as well as share with other people abroad. Another area is manufacturing of any sorts. Creating any manufacturing jobs are super helpful, mostly because with the invention of AI and machine learning, a lot of people feel like, oh, those type of things take away these manufacturing jobs. But what it actually presents is an opportunity to upskill really, really quickly. So if you, let's say, have a clothing manufacturing company and you're having people hand sew things, now, as we start looking at the application of technology and AI, you can find a way to quickly set up machines that use technology for people to start looking at, or automate some of these machines. And now you have people who are monitoring the process, who are now trained on fixing the operation. So I think those are 2 critical areas. And last but not least, I think something similar to a company that I work with is helping to build up the companies and ideas that people on the ground have. So like I said before, people have this notion that people in Ghana, they don't know always what's best for Ghana, so they have to come and save them. But what in actuality it is people have great business ideas. They just need the knowledge on how to actually run a business end to end, and they also need the financial support of what that looks like, and they have to be taught what business continuity looks like. So part of what my company does is I help with business continuity. So specifically, if we're looking at things from the HR lens, you hire people, you train them up. The people you train are your asset. If you lose that knowledge, you're losing a piece of your company. So how do you retain that? How do you cultivate that? How do you help them manifest their dreams also while manifesting your own? So I feel like that's really critical, and that's an area that's ripe for innovation here in Ghana.
Let me ask you, what are some of the challenges businesses face in terms of the HR, part of it?
Yes. So many things. I'll say the first thing is, of course, as we know, retaining talent and even finding talent. So oftentimes people don't know where to look for good talent. Some people, they pigeonhole talent in certain spaces where they say, oh, there might only be good talent in Accra or certain places in Accra. Meanwhile, you can actually find that same talent somewhere in Ho or somewhere in Wa. You just might not be exposed to where they're situated. Another issue that people often have when it comes to talent is developing the talent. People often think, okay, it's my business. I want to pay them the very barest minimum for me to be in operation. But in actuality, if you invest in the talent, I'll give you an example. I was hiring for a personal assistant. I was introduced to a gentleman. I hired him on. Working with him was great. In conversations and early on, I decided I really wanted to understand what were some of his goals. He shared with me that he wants to do some more operation type of work. So even though I realized him being my personal assistant wasn't necessarily something that made him feel like he could grow and thrive, because I understood that operational side of him that really wanted to thrive in that space. So I started putting in more operational type of projects for him to work on. And I saw putting these little speed bumps, as I would call them. It gave him a chance to slow down, refocus, and also get re-energized and more excited about the work that he was working on.
Interesting. What do you think you can do for businesses now? Because I think, is it literal? David said that companies spend a lot of money on rehiring, than anything. What do you think you can be able to do differently to be able to save those businesses from losing a lot of money just from rehiring?
Yeah, no, it's super important to hire right. Or if you don't hire right, fire fast. That's what I advise people all the time. So one thing is you have to be really clear on what you want. Sometimes it's difficult to sit down, but you have to make the time and really understand, what do I want? What is the end goal of this person? And then what people don't often think about is, what is the journey I want this person on? Depending on the level of where you're hiring, people need motivation. So if you're hiring somebody who is entry level in Ghana or even mid-level in Ghana, they still need motivation to understand what the end goal looks like and how they fit into your bigger picture. Just because you know doesn't mean they also make that same assumption. So I find those two things to be really critical.
Interesting.
And also on the point of firing fast, if you get somebody and they're not working out, if you're not able to identify ways to reposition them, you have to fire immediately, because what ends up happening is it ends up draining you energy-wise, and then you're not able to be as productive, and then you start to grow resentment towards the person, and a lot of times it can be unwarranted.
Interesting. Fire fast. Is it not like rude or mean to do that?
No. If anything, I would see that as better, right? Just looking at things from a cultural lens, because we are a communal society, when you're around somebody for a long period of time, you start to see them as family. However we define family individually is different, right? But just holistically, they start to look like they are family. And with family, it becomes difficult to make certain decisions without looking like you said, a bad person. So what is the best way to mitigate that? You get rid of them before they become family. So I highly recommend that if you hire somebody, you make sure that you're assessing them early and often. And once you determine that they're not a fit, you fire them immediately so that you can get the person who's a better fit.
By you having proper HR, can a business make more money that way?
Yes.
How?
So the way businesses make more money is when you have people who are motivated, that leads to higher profitability automatically. So if I hire someone who is selling on behalf of me, the person goes out, they advertise for me, they say what amazing products I have, what amazing services I have. And because of that, the energy that they give, the energy they provide, someone decides, okay, I now want to work with this person, or I want their product or service that they have to offer. If I'm not treating my employee well, and I ask them to go out and get me business, they're not going to do it with a happy face. They might even be frowning. I also think about it like, if somebody is hungry and you tell them, oh, go to work and do this for me and get me money, but you're not giving them money, you're not feeding them, the last thing they're actually thinking about is giving you money. They're thinking, how do I get myself money? And that's when corruption and bribery start to get introduced into your workplace.
Interesting. Have you worked with some brands or companies? If so, what are some of the companies you've worked with? And what are some of the growth transitions the company has made before and after you came in?
Yeah, so for the most part, a lot of the work I've done has been for either the U.S. companies or German companies.
Okay.
A lot of the work that I did before I moved to Ghana was specifically on HR, mergers and acquisition. So a lot of times I would go into a company essentially to save them or to save the merger. So oftentimes whenever you're doing a deal, the last part is the due diligence. And as they're doing the due diligence...
The last part?
Yeah, you're supposed to do it up front, but you have to do a final check off due diligence to sign off on the deal. So as they're set on that part, usually when it's a large organization or even a small organization, that's when they start bringing in subject matter experts to make sure that they're organizing the company well for what the final product will look like. So I've gone in usually when it's a merger, for instance. I'll come in, I'll look at, okay, what is the culture on both companies? How do we merge that culture? How do we start doing some change management processes? So what does that look like? Do we have redundancy in certain positions that we already haven't made allocations for? Have we overhired in certain positions? If we now have to terminate these people, but they've stayed in throughout the whole merger process, what does that compensation look like to have them exit? What does a retainer fee look like? What is the training process in place to make sure we're able to retain them? I look at all those things. I've done that specifically with Dropbox. I've done that with Shutterfly. Shutterfly is a photography company. So really? I've done that for those companies. And then in Ghana, I haven't helped out with that process specifically, but I've helped people hire talent. So I don't know if I should name my clients, but there's a company called... So I've helped them hire some quality talent. I've helped some people who are in need of personal assistance. I've helped them get some personal assistance. So whatever events and stuff they wanted to launch in Ghana, they were able to do successfully with the support they had.
Interesting. What is your target brands you wish to work with here in Ghana?
Yes. So the people I look for are people that are ready for change. So I essentially do a change readiness assessment, and I determine whether or not the people are either ready to raise money or the people are ready to grow. So they're ready to scale or duplicate or replicate whatever processes they have in place. So generally these tend to be either medium-sized companies or small established companies that already have processes in place, and they're either looking to establish an HR department or they're looking to now have fractional HR support so they can build out their infrastructure until they're ready to bring in someone full-time.
Interesting. Let's just detour a little bit. Being in Ghana, being just for the jokes, being a single, are you married?
No.
I mean, how is it? I've had a lady who's like, she's more free being single now, living her best life. How do you balance? Ghana is a fun place to be.
Yes.
How do you balance the business side of things, like you just elaborated, with the funness of Ghana?
Yeah, so...
And being single at that.
So I usually work a lot, so I haven't really been doing too much dating. I do date here and there. I will say the best way I'm able to balance things is also interacting with working professionals. So if someone is in the similar workspace, for instance, if they work in tech or something like that, it's easy for us to understand our lifestyles. Or if someone is a diasporan who has recently relocated. So just finding those commonalities, I find that's the easiest way to date.
Are you sure?
I mean, I'm trying, so we'll see what happens. Yeah.
Why are you single?
I don't know. You're making me shy.
Really, don't be shy. Your future husband can be watching right now. Anyways, just just a quick fun and jokes. If people are watching this, I mean, your parents, are they still on your side saying that, okay, now we support you now because we see the vision, or they are still on the other side saying, can you just come back to America and have a job? I literally spoke to somebody yesterday that she said her parents still tell her to this day that, can you just come back to the state and get a job? Is that your case? If no, what is it, where's their stand now?
Yeah, so I think my mom knows I'm not coming back anytime soon, and she's made peace with that. My dad is still telling me to come back.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
It's always the dads, right?
Yeah, I think from my dad's point of view, he felt like, because like I shared with his background, because he kind of capped out in Ghana, and that's what caused him to want to immigrate to the US. I think he looks at it like there's still a ceiling here in Ghana. And once you reach that ceiling, there's nowhere else to go. And I've shared with him, I mean, he comes to Ghana, right?
For visit.
So I've shared with him several times that the Ghana he knew in the 80s is not the Ghana that's thriving today. Like, there's more opportunities, and it's more about your network. And I've shared with him, like, his network isn't the same network that it once was. So when he was younger, I'm sure his network was a bunch of students and people who are just all struggling to make it in life. But now, just because of his age, my dad's in his 70s. Okay. His mates are people who were managing directors of the Tema Harbor and all these other places, or they work at the Center for Science and Innovation Research, and they are in all these lofty positions, and they're either still there or they've now retired. So I try to get him to understand, like, Ghana has changed, so there's still a lot of opportunities, and he can still lean into that network and still be able to make the difference that he's seeking.
Did your heritage or your parents' network here on the ground help you in any way, shape, or form in your transitioning down here to Ghana? Were you allowed to use it, or they took it away from you?
So unfortunately, they took it away from me.
Because they don't support you being in Ghana?
Yes. So I won't say they purposely took it away, right? But they didn't go out of their way to make introductions. But luckily, because I do have cousins here and other family members who have let me know that when you're in Ghana, it's all about who you know. Even if you don't know anything, it's about who you know. So because they instilled that in me from many early on visits, I was quick to make sure, okay, once I get on the ground, I socialize, I introduce myself, I go to various different conferences, I meet people, I network, I keep in contact with as many people as I can, and I either help them or I ask them if they can help me with something.
Interesting.
So I find reciprocity is the best way to get things done in Ghana.
So at one point, do we draw the line of your network and who you know and corruption? Like, where do we do this? You know what I'm saying? Because it can be a very blurry line.
I agree. I think it depends on who is in your network. So for instance, I try to surround myself with people that make recommendations on me based on my merit. So if they don't make a recommendation or they don't want to do some type of introduction, I can confidently feel that, okay, it's based on the knowledge they feel I have of a particular area or what I might do for that particular connection. They feel like it won't be as noteworthy as I'm thinking it might be. So that's usually what I lean on. I guess maybe it's my culture, I would say the US cultural part of me, because I have often worked in spaces where you have to prove yourself, especially, so my last few jobs, I've been in tech for the past 6 years. Okay. So in tech, especially at a startup, especially if it's a small startup. So I've worked at large startups, but when I'm at small startups, you have to prove yourself. You have to work hard.
Is it because you're black?
Because I'm black, because I'm a woman, and also because they only get very few chances before they fail, right? And a lot of times founders are trying to scale their babies really quickly, and they're trying to make money or get their next venture opportunity. So because of all these things that are constantly in play, I'm used to having to hit the ground running and try to make things happen really fast. So people know that, okay, if we recommend her to do a particular thing, either she will do it, within a quick time, or she won't do it and she'll say she can't do it. So I try to make sure that my yes is my yes and my no is my no.
Interesting. Now, talk to me about the tech, because I thought HR, no, wait a minute. So you have a HR thing going on, but you're also in tech.
Yeah, so I predominantly support tech companies. So the industries that I've supported within my HR background have been healthcare, tech, and I've also supported with some government agencies.
Government agencies. Interesting. Talk to me about some of the few things you did to help you transition yourself into the society, your business as well, that you think people watching should pick up. In terms of what did you do? Like, one of the things is networking, making sure you had the right gathering, etc., etc. Can you list some few things you did that helped you out with your transition into Ghana, into the society with yourself and your business?
So I'll definitely say networking is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Outside of networking, LinkedIn. I found LinkedIn to be really helpful. When I was getting ready to come to Ghana, before I first came, I decided I wanted to kind of do like a field study to understand what the HR landscape was like in Ghana. Because in my mind, it was non-existent. No one respected HR in any capacity. And I was fortunate to meet people like a gentleman named Abubakar. And when him and I sat down, he informed me that the HR space is thriving. And they have lots of many different networks where they circulate talent even within, like, for example, the banking sector. So just knowing things like that, I was able to get a better understanding of what successful HR people do, and also at what point in time do they reach out to consultants, and why do they reach out to particular consultants, and what are some of these HR consulting agencies doing in Ghana to make change.
Now, you know how American system can be very strict and rigid, straight to the point, and the Ghanaian system is just like wishy-washy. How do you make sure you implement the right system using the American system and not to kind of break them in a way because of how they are used to it for a long period of time? How do you mitigate that? How do you do that?
Yes. So the way I generally handle that is I try to get, for example, like if I'm working with my staff, I try to get them to understand that it's okay to make a mistake. So I find one thing is, we're all guilty of this. Growing up in a Ghanaian household, I was taught to be a perfectionist. A perfectionist. And with time, that perfectionist attitude, you would think it was helpful, but it actually started becoming overwhelming. And the way I look at that is that happens to a lot of people here in Ghana as well. Like, you feel like you might not have another opportunity to prove yourself, so you'll take on anything, even if it's not a good match for your personality, and you'll work really hard until you burn yourself out, and then you won't know how to say that you've burned yourself out. So then you just kind of bury your head in the sand, and you're just like, forget about it. If I take my head out and I still have the opportunity, great. If I take my head out and it's not there, I'll just go and come up with some story as to why that happened. So one way I try to mitigate that is I tell my staff, if you have any issue at all, let me know early on. If you told me during the interview you know how to do something, you've gotten the job, you don't know how to do it, it is okay. You just have to let me know, because if the client wanted to work with you because they thought, for example, you can do succession planning, don't keep telling me you know how to do succession planning and really you're just telling somebody, oh, okay, here's a learning and development plan for how you can grow in the organization. That's different from succession planning. Succession planning includes who is the emergency backup, who will do your work when you're not able to do the work, what is your growth trajectory, are we having you going to be a backfill for a senior consultant, what do you need to know just in case the senior consultant is out. That's different from what is your growth plan. Your growth plan includes things like understanding solid customer service. I'm using HR as an example. It might be more like understanding recruitment practices. So understanding, knowing what different things are, even if you don't know, I'm more than happy to teach you. I just want to know so I can allocate my time.
So there has to be a sense of honesty.
Yes.
Right there. Interesting. Give me 3 advices for people watching who want to embark on a journey to Ghana to do something, business and anything. 3 advice.
So when it comes to business, seek out collaboration. I find collaboration to be king. Collaboration opens doors that you didn't even know existed, that you didn't even see, and the ones you didn't even know were locked. Another thing is get a car, especially if you're in Greater Accra. Having a car is critical to move around, and make sure you get a license as well. And then the last thing is definitely build your network online and offline. So traditionally, doing things like going out to lunch with somebody, it might feel like, oh, it's a waste of time. This isn't something I really want to do. In Ghana, it goes a long way because it helps people understand and assess who you are.
That's where you build real relationship.
Exactly. And once you build that real relationship, the opportunities are endless. People will think about you in closed door rooms.
Now, look at me as a Webnation Africa. How do I upscale? Give me an advice from HR perspective. Why is my English not coming today? Give me an advice from an HR perspective.
So from an HR perspective, first I would need to do a needs assessment or an analysis of your whole org. So I would need to understand the staff that you currently have on board and what is your mission, vision, and your values, as well as whatever company values you might have set up. Once I understand that infrastructure and I know where you're trying to grow, then we can allocate various different positions that will help ensure that you're growing on that path and the critical skills that are needed. We can do it one of two ways. We can either upskill your current staff if they have the capacity to grow, or we can add new people on and then they can grow from that perspective.
So, example, if I show you a statistics of our revenue, you as an HR knows what we can add on or take out to either make more money annually or stuff. Do you do anything like that?
Yes. All right. So based on the projections of where you're hoping your revenue will go and the type of projects and things you want to embark on, I'll look at that, decide what skills are needed in order to make sure that you're able to make that goal or hit that goal. So that means, do you have someone who's a senior level proficiency person at this thing? What is the average cost in the market for such a person? And once you're able to get that person on board, how dedicated are they to the mission?
Interesting.
Once we have that full alignment, then I can say, okay, this person overall in general might have cost maybe 30,000 CDs.
Right.
And if you're projected to make maybe 70,000 CDs, because that person costs 30 and you're trying to make 70 more, how quickly can that person get you to that 70? What are the KPIs you're going to set for that person? If you're able to successfully set KPIs within the first 6 months, then within that 6 months, instead of it taking a year that you had initially projected, you'll be able to meet that goal within 6 months, which is 50% cost savings of time.
Now you see how people, I've met most diaspora who want to just, they want their money to move to Ghana and not necessarily them, right? So do you also work with people who just want to come down here, establish their kind of business, right? It could be a food joint or whatever, and then is it possible for you to be able to come in and automate the whole thing to a point where the person can still be in the States and still manage the business and see his ROI come through without no disturbances? Is that something you've been working? Yeah?
Yes.
Talk to me about it.
So that's something I can definitely help with.
Right.
So one of the things I offer is outsourcing services.
Outsourcing services. Okay.
So if you have your company fully set up and it's running on the ground, but let's say you're like, I need a finance person. I need someone to deal with operations. You can reach out to me and I can help support with that as well. So what that support looks like is after I do the assessment of your org, I understand on the ground, what does the talent look like to specifically provide operational or finance support? What, based on the talent and the skills, I'm able to find the person, hire them, bring them on full time, manage the payroll and the coordination for them so you don't have any liability to your company. And then I'm also, like I said, collaborations are key. I'm also working with an organization. We are a venture builder. And with that venture building aspect, if you have an idea that you have fully vetted, you've already built it out, you understand what that infrastructure looks like, but you just want it to be done in Ghana, or you're hoping for it to be done somewhere else within sub-Saharan Africa, we've come together as a team and we can help scale and build out that business for a stake in the company, but also moreover to help guarantee you some returns of some sort.
Interesting. What's your HR company name?
Diapa.
Diapa. Why Diapa?
So Diapa in tree means good tree.
Good tree, yeah.
Yes. So the way I look at it is my entity or my company is setting up a good tree or a fruitful tree, and every good tree has strong roots.
Yeah.
And all the people that work with me, all the people I collaborate with, they all contribute to the strength of the roots that create the good tree.
And then they say in our language, "Ofru Diapa ni piano."
Yes.
Well, if you do have a final message to people watching you, it could be your business partners, potential future business partners, your family and friends, what would that message be?
It would be teamwork makes the dream work. So if you want to collaborate, let's get in touch. Let's make it happen. Also, last but not least, people equals profitability. So at the end of the day, when you invest in your people, specifically in Ghanaians or Africans of any sort, you're going to yield profitability. Either it could be financially, emotionally, the profitability, the gain is there.
I like that. Thank you so much for talking to me. Before I let you go, how much money did you come to Ghana with?
Let's see. So I allocated 45,000 USD for Ghana.
For Ghana. And 1.5 years, are you still, is the money still holding strong, or you think you wish you brought a lot more?
So, of course, I wish I brought a lot more. But I'll say with that amount of money, as long as you have the right connections, you're able to make things happen quickly.
Interesting.
Even less.
Yeah, even less.
Even less.
I would advise people to bring a lot of money, though.
Yes.
Because I don't like talking about myself a lot, but I invested a lot of money that I didn't think I would need to be able to get to where I wanted to get to. But yeah, 45,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Then how long did it take you to save that?
3 years.
Yes. There's a gentleman goes by the name Kwab Asamoah. He's the CEO for Custom Looks. And he made mention that most African Americans in the States can't afford to move to Africa. One, because they have too much of utilities to pay. It's like the credit system. Do you find truth in that statement? If so, elaborate on that.
Yes, it's 100% true. The credit system leaves you often starting at a deficit. So you have to be really intentional about your savings. So in terms of how I try to save is I try to allocate 20% of my income towards my savings specifically. There's many different retirement investment vehicles in the US. One of them is a 401k. So I maxed out my 401k to make sure my taxable income is far less. So when you have less income that's taxed, you're able to start saving quote unquote more money. So that's one thing I did. I also invested in, I have another business in the US, and specifically with that business, I invest in other people's companies. So I think it's advisable to have many different vehicles for investment.
What's the minimum amount of money somebody should have before coming to Ghana? Because I've seen so many people come and go than come and stay.
Yes.
So based on your own assessment, what do you think should be the minimum someone should come with?
Well, so based on how I kind of budget my money, I would say in general, I spend maybe around 3,000 USD a month in Ghana. That includes gas, my rent, and all those sorts of things, or any activities I might attend, or family members that might ask me for money. So within my expenditures, so we multiply that by 12, that's 36,000. So I would say if you're planning on kicking off for a year before anything kicks off for you, having a minimum of 36,000 at this current exchange rate is probably most advisable.
So if the person even spend way lesser than you, they might not even need that much.
Yeah, it all depends on where you live.
Where you live, okay.
Yeah.
Where you live, Tema?
So I live in Tema, and because I often commute to Accra, that's where a lot of my expenditures, that's where that goes to.
Interesting. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you.
I wish we can keep it going. Maybe there would be a part 2. Let's see how people react to it first. But this has been a great conversation. I've learned so much about HR. I might need you to help me out, upskill my brand. I have a vision for this year. I want to get 100,000 subscribers by the end of this year. What do you think I can do differently?
We'll speak in chambers.
Okay.
And I'll make it happen.
All right. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been an amazing conversation with Akosua. And if you like, please make sure you like it. Subscribe. YouTube said 80% of you guys watching have not subscribed it. You love the video, but you forget to subscribe. So please try and subscribe. Our goal this year is to get 100,000 subscribers. And yes, please subscribe to help that become possibility. Also, we are going to Nigeria in May. We'll be traveling to South Africa. So if you're in these countries, you want to share your stories, please feel free to reach out to us. Email is on the screen, webnationafrica@gmail.com. And we will come to you wherever you are. Hopefully you're in Lagos or Abuja. We can come to you so you share your story. Also in Cape Town or Johannesburg. So yes, thank you so much for watching. It's been an amazing one. So without further ado, let's say bye-bye to them. All right, peace out.